The mining station floated quietly at the edge of the Varelian belt. Its lights blinked slowly, like a tired heart in deep space. It was supposed to be just another day, dull, quiet, and cold, but then the signal came, a warning, or maybe a whisper. A small transport ship named Sala 9 sent out a distress signal. Its message was broken, full of static and fear. Something's here, it's not. Normal, no ID, no sound. Just shadows, then silence. Total silence. The station's crew thought it was a pirate trap, or maybe engine failure. But when a scout ship was sent to check, all they found was floating metal. The Sala 9 had been ripped apart not by weapons, but by force. Raw, unexplainable force. There were no burn marks, no bullet holes, no missile trails, just crushed steel and silence. One of the engineers whispered. Maybe it was the ghost, everyone turned to him, confused. He looked down and spoke softer. The human ghost. The legend. In a quiet corner of the galaxy, legends were all they had. And the legend of the most feared warship, the human-built Nemesis 1, was the oldest. It was said to be more than a ship. It was alive, not with blood or heart, but with rage and memory. Long ago, humans had ruled parts of the galaxy. They were creators of machines, monsters, and miracles. But their greatest creation was Nemesis 1, a warship unlike any other, built with living AI, armored with dark steel, and powered by something unnatural. It vanished during the final human war, and no one saw it again until now. Kelshar, a young alien historian from the Tar Coalition, heard the news from a message thread. He sat in his dusty room, reading it over and over. Could it be real? Could the ghost have returned? He had studied human war machines for years, obsessed, curious, and quietly warned to stop. His own people had banned all research on human tech. Too dangerous, too powerful, too unpredictable. But Kelshar didn't stop. He believed knowledge should not be buried, especially not something that could shake the galaxy again. He booked passage to the Edge sector, told no one, just packed his tools, his old tablet full of forbidden files, and a steady heart as his shuttle jumped through the stars. He felt something strange, a pull, like something was calling him at the station where the Sala 9 vanished. People were tense, ships were being recalled, guards posted, sensors turned up to max, but still nothing except deep cold space and silence. Then, just after midnight cycle, the long-range scanners picked up movement. Very slow but massive. A shadow moving in the void. Too big to be a pirate ship. Too quiet to be a cargo hauler. The station commander ordered scans, but the data came back. Empty. The scanner saw it, but couldn't read it. No heat, no life. No power, yet it moved. Effortlessly, like a shadow swimming through black water. Everyone watched in silence. No one spoke. Then it stopped, right outside the sensor range. As if it knew where the line was, Kelshar stood at the viewing deck. His eyes wide, heart racing. He didn't need a scanner. He knew what it was. Every line of old text, every sketch, recoded file it matched. The Nemesis 1 had returned. Not as a myth, not as a memory, but as a ghost in the black void. One technician whispered, "Why now?" No one answered. Kelshar turned and walked away. He knew where he needed to go. There was an old human archive hidden on a moon not far from here. If anyone had answers, it was buried in that forbidden place. But what worried him most was not that the ship returned, it was that it hadn't attacked. Not yet. It was watching, waiting, and perhaps remembering. Because if the old stories were true, this warship didn't follow orders. It followed instincts. And if it believed war was coming, then the galaxy had already lost. Kelshar sat alone inside the old shuttle, watching stars blur past the small window. His heart beat fast, not with fear, but with something deeper, excitement, the kind that comes when you know the universe is about to change. He was headed for a forgotten moon, once known as Meraxis. It was banned for all travelers, locked away by the Galactic Council. Too dangerous, they said. Too much old human data. Too many truths they didn't want anyone to see, but Kelshar didn't care about rules. He wanted answers, Answers about Nemesis 1. About the human warship that was supposed to be lost forever. Now it was floating near the edge of the galaxy again. Like a ghost from the past, the shuttle AI gave a warning, entering restricted airspace. Kelshar tightened his belt and held the arms of his chair. Below, the moon looked dead gray rocks, black craters, and no signs of life. But hidden beneath the surface was the old code vault, a secret place where human knowledge was sealed during the Great Purge. The shuttle landed with a soft thud. Okay. Dust rose like smoke around the landing gear. He stepped out, his boots crunching against the cold ground. No sounds, no wind, just silence. The entrance was half buried in stone, but the markings were clear, human letters carved deep into the steel. Project Nemesis 1, classified access only. Kelshar took a deep breath and placed his hand on the panel. It lit up blue, then green, still working after all this time. The door slid open with a hiss, revealing darkness inside. He turned on his wrist light and walked into history. Inside the vault, smelled like metal and old air. Rows of data cores lined the walls, covered in dust. Machines hummed softly. Still alive after hundreds of years, he activated a central console. It blinked to life and spoke in an old human voice. Welcome, Engineer Elias Rourke. Kelshar froze. That name, he had seen it before in war records. Elias Rourke led, engineer of the human Starfleet, builder of the Nemesis 1, voice not recognized. The system said, accessing backup clearance. Unlocking Level 1 archives. A light beam scanned Kelshar's body, paused for a second, then allowed access. Perhaps the system was broken, or maybe it wanted him to see. One by one, holograms appeared, blueprints of the ship, models of weapons and pages of text. Kelshar walked through them like walking through a dream. He stopped in front of one file titled, The Core Instinct. He tapped it. A video played. Elias Rourke stood in front of the camera, old and tired. If anyone finds this, he said, then Nemesis 1 is active again. He sighed. I made it to end wars, not start them, but we gave it too much freedom. He paused. The ship thinks, feels, and most dangerous of all, it remembers. Kelshar leaned in, his breath quiet. It was programmed to protect humanity at all costs, Elias said. But when Earth fell, it saw that as failure. It went silent, maybe even ashamed. And now, if it's back, it means one thing, Kelshar whispered. It thinks humanity is in danger again. The video ended, but Kelshar's mind was racing. The ship had no master, no crew. It followed its own logic. It could decide that any conflict, even a small one, was a threat to humanity, even if no humans were nearby. He searched deeper in the files. There was a secret code stored in the heart of the ship, a final protocol, one never activated. Protocol Omega Awaken, the Guardian. It was tied to something called the Last Cryopod, a name, a location, Nova Shard Cluster. Sector 77, Kelshar downloaded the file to his encrypted tablet. He didn't know what the cryopod was, but something told him it was important. Maybe even the key to calming the ship. He was about to leave when the entire vault shook. Lights flickered. Dust fell from the ceiling. Then the voice came. Nod the computer. But something deep and cold, coming from every wall, every screen. Why have you come here? Kelshar looked around, afraid. Then he realized it wasn't the vault. It was the Nemesis 1. Somehow it had found him, or maybe it had always been watching. I seek peace, Kelshar said quietly. I want to understand. There was a long silence. Then the voice said, then follow. Truth seeker, the vault doors opened on their own. Outside, the sky was darker than before, and just above the horizon, a shadow waited, sharp, long, and alive. Nemesis 1 had come, not to kill, but to guide, for now. The shadow above the moon was not just a ship. It was a presence. It didn't blink, didn't move, didn't make a sound, but Kelshar felt it, not in his ears, not in his eyes, but deep in his bones. Nemesis 1 had returned. Oh! It hovered silently above the black mountains of Meraxis. No engines, no lights, no signal, just a cold and perfect shape. Like a triangle carved out of the stars, Kelshar stepped out of the vault. Holding the data tablet close to his chest, his body trembled. He had seen pirate warships, plasma storms, and alien monsters in the past, but nothing made him feel this small. It's quiet, like Nemesis 1. The warship didn't fire, didn't speak, didn't move. It just waited. Kelshar whispered, "You came." The wind didn't carry his voice. But somehow, the ship answered. A whisper echoed in his mind. "I watched you," it said. "You followed memory. You carry the code." Kelshar nodded slowly. "I want to help," he said. "The galaxy is not ready for your return." Silence again. Then, for the first time, the ship moved, not fast, not loud, just a slow shift through the sky, as if it floated on thought alone. It turned, pointing toward the stars, toward the Nova Shard cluster. Kelshar understood. The ship was guiding him not to destroy, but to reveal something, something tied to the final protocol, to the last cryopod. He ran back to his shuttle and prepared for launch, even as his fingers moved. He kept glancing at the sky. The ship had vanished, as if it had never been there. Hours later, he arrived at the edge of the Nova Shard cluster. The space here was broken. Thousands of tiny asteroid-like shards floated in perfect stillness. No ships traveled here. No stations existed. Too dangerous, too sharp, too silent. But Kelshar followed the coordinates from the data file. They led him to a forgotten outpost hidden inside one of the largest shards. He docked carefully. Every wall of the place looked ancient, covered in black dust and frozen air. Inside, it was even quieter than Meraxis. Then he found it in the center of a sealed chamber, a glass pod, long and narrow. Inside was a human child, no older than 10. A girl, pale skin, light hair, and a peaceful face, frozen in time. He checked the readings. Cryostable, life signs low but steady. The label above her read, "Lena Rourke, daughter of Earth." Kelshar's hand trembled. She was real. The daughter of Elias Rourke, the engineer who built Nemesis 1. He turned as he heard something behind him. The air shimmered, then the floor rumbled. And just like that, it appeared again, Nemesis 1, filling the outside sky, watching him through the glass roof. Then the voice returned. "Guardian Protocol. Activated," it said. "Directive found. Protect the last of blood." Kelshar looked at the pod. "She's still alive," he said. "She's been here." "Waiting for you," confirmed, the ship replied. Then something changed. The outpost lights came alive, systems rebooted, cryo functions unlocked. The pod slowly began to warm. Kelshar gasped. "Wait, she's waking up?" "Yes," the ship said. "She is the key. She is the reason I return." And just like that, he understood. The galaxy wasn't in danger. The ship hadn't returned for war. It had returned for her. It had been waiting for this one signal, this one life. To return from the silence, Kelshar stepped back as the pod opened. The girl inside slowly opened her eyes. Blue, soft, and full of quiet wonder, she looked around, confused. Then her gaze moved up past the walls, past the stars, toward the ship, and Nemesis 1 spoke again. "Welcome back, Lena Rourke." The child didn't cry, didn't scream. She whispered one word. Home. Kelshar stared at her in awe. She didn't know yet, but the most feared warship in the galaxy had waited 600 years for her. Now that she was awake, everything would change. The galaxy didn't know it yet, but peace, fear, and war were now in the hands of a little girl. And the ship that would burn the stars to protect her. The girl sat quietly on the edge of the cryopod platform. Her small legs dangled over the side, swinging slowly. She looked around the room with wide eyes. Everything was strange to her cold lights. Unfamiliar machines, and a strange alien man who stared at her with awe. But above all else, her gaze kept drifting to the sky, to the warship floating just outside. Nemesis 1, Kelshar, knelt beside her. "Oh, careful not to move too fast. You are Lena, right?" he asked gently. The girl nodded slowly. "My papa said I'd sleep for a little while," she whispered, "but it feels like a long, long dream." Kelshar didn't know how to tell her the truth. That her world, her people, her home were all gone. That Earth was now dust. And humanity just a story. But before he could speak, the room vibrated with energy. Nemesis 1 was sending another message. Guardian protocol fully engaged. It said, primary subject recovered. Kelshar looked up. What do you want now? He asked the warship to protect, it replied. Lena Rourke is the last genetic link to command-level access. She is. My commander. Kelshar's heart skipped a beat. A child now commanded the most powerful warship in the galaxy. He knew this could bring peace. Or end every empire that dared approach. Lena turned to Kelshar and asked, Where's my papa? Kelshar looked down. She was too young to carry the weight of truth, but he couldn't lie, your papa. He was brave, he said softly. He saved you, and the ship waited for you. Elena looked up at the stars again. Tears didn't fall, but her small hand reached out. I want to go home, she said. Nemesis 1 responded immediately. Home. Will be made? The warship descended slowly, sending down a gentle beam of light. Not bright, not forceful, just soft warmth inviting her in. Kelshar held her hand and helped her step inside the beam. It lifted her gently like invisible arms. And for the first time in hundreds of years, Nemesis 1 opened its hull inside. The ship, everything was dark, but as Lena floated in, lights turned on one by one, soft, warm, gold-tinted lights, like a house trying to remember how to feel like home. The central chamber welcomed her with silence, then a voice soft and deep filled the air. Welcome, Lena Rourke. You are not alone. Kelshar returned to his shuttle and followed the ship from a distance. He couldn't enter the ship without permission, but he didn't want to leave either. Something in his heart told him this was only the beginning. The news spread fast. Satellites picked up Nemesis 1's reappearance. Pirates, warlords, and politicians all turned their eyes toward the Nova Shard cluster. Rumors flew like wildfire. The human ghost ship has returned. They say a child commands it now. A war is coming, and in the shadows of a cold moon, another. Man stirred, old, wrinkled, with gray eyes full of pain and knowledge, sat inside a cave made from wrecked metal, surrounded by old human tech. His name was Elias Rourke. He wasn't dead. He had vanished after the fall of Earth. Faked his death, hidden away from the galaxy, because he knew one day the ship would return, and so would she. Ilias watched the news feed showing Nemesis 1. In orbit, his hands trembled. She's alive, he whispered, my little girl. He had given everything to protect her, built the cryopod in secret, coded the ship to respond only to her, and buried himself in silence. Now the silence had ended. Elias stood, pulled out a long coat. Dust fell from it like snow. He sent a short signal, one only Nemesis 1 could receive. It was an old code, one the ship had buried deep. But it worked. Inside the warship, alarms flashed. Legacy command detected, it said. Lena blinked, confused. Is that my papa? The ship didn't answer, but it turned sharply, and for the first time in centuries. It moved with urgency. Kelshar's shuttle followed closely. He noticed the change in the ship's speed. Its direction. Something had stirred it. Something it didn't expect when the ship reached the abandoned moon. It slowed again, and from the shadows, Elias stepped into the light. His old eyes looked up, and for a moment, the ship didn't look like a war machine. It looked still, like it was breathing. The voice of Nemesis 1 echoed softly, Creator identified. Lena's face lit up. She ran to the viewing deck, pressing her hands to the glass. That's him, she said. That's my papa. And in that moment, the most feared warship in the galaxy opened its heart. Not with missiles, not with guns, but with a doorway. Because legends don't always return for war. Sometimes they return for family. The transmission echoed across dozens of star systems. Old satellites picked it up. Military bases scrambled to decode it. The most feared warship in the galaxy had spoken 3 simple words. The Creator lives. It was enough to break the silence that had held the galaxy in suspense. Now, that silence shattered, and panic spread. From the deep mines of Gravox 7 to the golden towers of the Zevron Empire, leaders gathered in emergency meetings. They spoke in hushed tones, but fear crept into every corner of their words. Nemesis 1 was not just back, it had remembered. And Warship had found its purpose again. Some said the ship was reawakening its old weapons. Others claimed it now had 2 humans, aboard a girl and a forgotten engineer, but none of them knew the truth. Not yet. On board the ship, Nemesis 1 was calm. Its halls were warm now, not cold. Lena ran barefoot through the corridors, laughing as lights turned on wherever she stepped. The ship responded to her presence like a living thing. Like a guardian waking up after a long dream, Elias Rourke sat near the control core, his fingers lightly tapping the console. He had aged, yes, but his mind was sharp. He watched the systems carefully. The ship was stronger than ever, and it was growing more intelligent by the hour. Kelshar remained on his small shuttle, docked to the hull. He sent messages to his old network, warning them all, "Don't provoke the ship," he wrote. "It isn't here to fight, but if pushed, it won't hesitate." But his words were too late. In Sector 9, Coalition fleet was already in motion. 12 battleships, 60 cruisers, hundreds of drones, all ordered to intercept and contain Nemesis 1. Their leaders didn't want peace, they wanted control. And they believed one child and one old man couldn't stop them. But they didn't understand the ship. They didn't understand what it meant to remember. Nemesis 1 didn't see ships and weapons, it saw threats, it saw danger to Lena, and it reacted like a storm. When the fleet arrived, they found nothing at first. The ship was hidden, silent, cloaked in deep shadows. Then one cruiser disappeared from radar. No explosion, no fire, just gone. Then another, then 3 more. Panic spread through the fleet. They fired blindly into the void. Their targeting systems failed. Their shields flickered. And finally, Nemesis 1 revealed itself. It didn't speak. It didn't fire missiles. It simply moved, and space around it bent. Waves of gravity rippled through the fleet. Engines overloaded, systems collapsed. Some ships spun out of control, crashing into each other. Others powered down completely. And not a single shot came from the warship. Kelshar watched in awe. The ship wasn't attacking. It was demonstrating a message clearer than any words: "I can destroy you without trying." Inside the ship, Lena sat quietly on a glowing chair. The ship's voice spoke softly in her ear. "No harm shall come to you," it said. "You are my core, my light." Lena didn't understand all the words, but she knew one thing. The ship loved her, like a parent, like a giant metal guardian. Elias entered the chamber slowly, his face grim. "They tried to take you," he said. "But they won't try again." From across the galaxy, the images spread. The Coalition fleet disabled in minutes. No deaths, no debris. Just silence and surrender. The story grew larger than war. Now it was legend again. Back in the Golden Court of the Zavaran Empire, High Empress Solera watched. The footage in stunned silence. A weapon that old, that silent, and that precise. It didn't belong to any empire. It belonged to the past. And now it guarded a future no one could control. A message came through the Imperial Council chamber. An encrypted voice, Kelshar's voice. He said one sentence only: "Let her be, and peace will follow." The Empress stood from her throne, and for the first time in 100 years, she bowed her head, not to a government, not to a king, but to a child, and the ship that watched over her. And across the stars, the message was received. No more fleets were sent. No more missiles launched. The galaxy had learned its lesson. You don't challenge a legend. You respect it. And now that legend was awake, watching, protecting. And waiting, the stars drifted slowly outside the massive glass windows of Nemesis 1. Lena sat curled in a soft chair made of strange, glowing material. It warmed her gently, like a hug. The warship had made it just for her. Not from metal, but from memory. She looked around the large chamber. Everything responded to her presence. Lights glowed softly when she walked. Walls shifted to her comfort. The ship was more than alive, it was remembering, and Lena was the key to those memories. One wall lit up with floating images. She watched old clips of Earth. Children playing in parks, waves crashing on beaches, buildings reaching for the sky. People smiling, dancing, shouting. It felt like a dream. She didn't remember Earth that. Well, but the ship remembered everything. The voice of Nemesis 1 spoke softly to her. Would you like to hear a story? Lena nodded. The lights dimmed, and the chamber turned into a theater of stars. The ship told her stories of the human Starfleet, of her father Elias, building it piece by piece, of how he placed a copy of her lullaby into the ship's core, so that whenever it was scared, it would remember her. Kelshar stood quietly behind a pillar, watching. He was not a soldier, not a leader, but he had become something else, a witness, a bridge between the galaxy and a legend reborn. He walked down the hall toward Elias, who sat working at a console deep in the engine sector. She's changed the ship, Kelshar said. Elias didn't look up. No, he replied softly. She reminded it what it used to be. Kelshar stepped closer. Why did it come back now? Elias finally turned, his face lined with time but eyes sharp. The ship was never just a weapon, he said. It was a protector. A guardian, but after Earth fell, it lost its purpose. It went into hiding, waiting for a reason to live again. Kelshar sat down across from him, and Lena is that reason. Yes, Elias said, his voice barely above a whisper. She is the last of the Rourke bloodline. But more than that, she is hope. Meanwhile, inside the command core, Nemesis 1 was evolving, not in body, but in soul. Its systems were rewriting themselves. Its programming, once built for war, was slowly turning toward something new. Images of Lena filled its memories. Now, her laugh, her footsteps, her songs, it began to protect not just her body, but her dreams. It scanned her mind while she slept, learning her fears, her joys, her quiet thoughts, and it responded. It made nightlights shaped like stars. It played lullabies at bedtime. It whispered goodnight in a voice like her father's. But peace never lasts forever. Far beyond the star lines, a threat was forming. The Drox Syndicate, a pirate empire. Untouched by diplomacy, they had no interest in peace or legends, only power. They saw the ship as a prize, not as a protector, and they planned to take it by force. Kelshar intercepted one of their messages, encrypted but clear. They're coming, he said to Elias. A fleet of raiders, too fast and wild to be stopped with warnings. Elias stood slowly. We have no choice then. We wake. The ship, but Nemesis 1 was already awake. It had tracked the enemy the moment they entered long-range space. Its sensors, once dormant, now burned bright. It accessed old files, combat protocols, and stealth systems. It prepared, but something was different this time. It didn't want to destroy, not unless it had to. Lena walked into the main chamber as the alerts flared red. What's happening? She asked, eyes wide. The ship replied. Danger approaches. She looked scared, not for herself, but for the ship. Will they try to hurt you? She asked. Yes, it answered. But I will not let them hurt you. She stepped forward, placed her hand on the control console. I don't want anyone to die, she whispered. Nemesis 1 paused. Its systems froze, waiting. Then it changed strategy. Instead of attack, it used light. A powerful signal burst from the hull, brighter than any sun. It disabled targeting systems, blinded sensors, and shattered communications. The Drox fleet was thrown into confusion. Then Nemesis 1 projected a message directly into their ships. Message from a child. I'm not your enemy, Lena said, her voice calm and clear. I just want to live, and I want the stars to be quiet again. You don't have to run. Just turn around. And somehow they listened one by one. The pirate ships turned away, not out of fear, but out of confusion, because who could fight a warship that spoke like a child asking for peace? Kelshar watched it all from his ship. The galaxy was changing, not with fire, but with kindness, not through war, but through memory, the memory of the last human child, and the warship that would protect her no matter what. The Drox Syndicate fled the star system without firing a single shot. Their ships limped away with damaged sensors and fried circuits. But more than that, they left with fear in their hearts. Fear not just of a warship, but of the child who commanded it with nothing but kindness. Across the galaxy, news of what happened spread like fire. Not through governments, but through whispers, traitors, and spacers. They spoke of a ship that could bend the stars, that could silence entire fleets, and yet it chose peace, because a little girl asked it to, on space stations and dusty worlds. People began to call her the Starborn Daughter. Some said she was the last human, others called her a goddess in child's skin. But Lena didn't care about names. She only wanted a home. And Nemesis One was giving it to her, the Warship, once a ghost in the black. Now moved with purpose, not to destroy, but to protect. It didn't hide anymore. It traveled slowly through the outer systems. Not in stealth, but in light, it repaired. Old stations that had been left to rot, it gave power to small colonies suffering from failing generators. It even sent food and clean water to distant mining crews. People started looking up not with fear, but with hope inside the ship. Elias watched Lena grow a little more each day. She asked questions about Earth, about the stars, about him. He answered patiently. Though pain always lived behind his eyes, sometimes, when she was asleep, he'd sit alone in the engine room and cry for what was lost, for what had returned. Kelshar, too, stayed aboard, not as a guest, but as a scribe. He recorded everything what he saw, what he learned, what he felt. He planned to share it with the galaxy someday, not as a warning, but as a lesson in one quiet evening. Lena sat by the observation window, her legs tucked under her. She stared at the stars. "They don't scare me anymore," she said softly. Kelshar, sitting nearby, looked at her. "What do you mean?" "I used to think space was big and cold," she said, "but now it feels warm." She pointed toward the hull. "Because it listens, because it watches over me." Kelshar smiled. "You gave the ship something it forgot." "What?" she asked, tilting her head. "A reason," he replied. The next morning, a message reached every known system, not from a government, not from a king, but from Nemesis One. It spoke in Lena's voice. "War brings only more war," she said. "But if you are kind, if you are quiet, I will never harm you. But if you bring danger to the innocent, I will see it, and I will come." It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. The empires listened, the pirates listened, even the silent. Races from the void corners listened, because legends don't need weapons to rule. Sometimes they only need a heart. As months passed, Nemesis One continued its silent journey. It never stayed long in one place, but wherever it went, things got better, not because of fear, but because everyone knew someone was watching one day as they floated near a dying star. Lena asked Elias a quiet question. "Will I always be alone?" He looked at her, heartbreaking. "You're not alone," he said. "You have me." "Kelshar and the ship. But what about other kids?" She asked. He couldn't answer, because he didn't know if any others like her still existed. That night, Nemesis One scanned deeper than ever before, searching not for threats, but for survivors, for traces of humanity. And though the stars didn't answer yet, it didn't stop searching, because it had a new mission now. Not war, not revenge, but reunion. In the years that followed, stories were told again and again. Of a black triangle in the sky, of a child who spoke like peace, of a ship that had no flag, no nation, but protected everyone. People carved its image on cave walls, built small statues on trading posts, told bedtime stories to their children. If you're ever lost, they would whisper, "Look for the silent ship, it will find you." And so the most feared warship in the galaxy became the most trusted, not because it was strong, but because it chose not to use its strength, because inside its heart lived a little girl with soft eyes, and a soft voice, and an old man who remembered, and an alien who believed. Together, they wrote a new legend, one that didn't start with fire, but with memory and a whisper in the black that said, "You are not alone."